It's not working. All right. Okay, how do I do that? Hang on. Got it. All right. Hi, my name is Judith, and I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Ali, Teresa. Thank you to the group, and thank you for inviting me back. That's something that I feel is a blessing to me to be able to participate in your group, because I love this meeting. Don't always get on it because normally at this time I take a meeting into the men's prison. And so that's my commitment on every week. And but I'm glad that I get to be here and join you and participate in this group. So thank you for having me back. My sobriety date is January the 19th, 2009. So a few days ago, I turned 14. I'm a teenager +1. And for that, I credit this amazing program, the big book, a very strong sponsor, and the simple fact that I simply cooperated. I cooperated with what my sponsor directed, and it has served me well. I never thought, oh my gosh, I never thought I would even have 14 days. Never intended to have 14 days. Never thought that was possible. And I remember it very, very well. And in a blink of an eye, putting one day after another, one foot in front of the other, one direction and action in front of the other, all of a sudden I blink and it went really fast. I just want to encourage anyone that is in their first year, which to me was a very difficult year, just keep doing one action, taking one action after another. If you work this program, it absolutely is amazing, and a life that, you get a life that's transformed, and it goes fast. It goes fast once you get over that little hump. At least it was a little hump for me. I do have a home group. I don't want to take a lot of my time. Oops, I did start my timer now. I don't want to take a lot of time because I'm excited about the topic tonight, and I love this format of the meeting because we get to explore a little bit wider than the traditional AA, sharing our stories, which are very important. I want to make very clear that I am a hopeless chronic alcoholic who has simply found the life-saving message of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that has transformed my life. Don't have time to tell you all the stories because I want to stick to the topic. And but I do have a home group. I think that's very, very important. And I do have a sponsor, and I sponsor other women. And I think that that is all of my sobriety date and protecting my sobriety date, having a sponsor, using my sponsor, having a home group, which is a home in AA. I think those are some really vital parts of my program that I always want to highlight, because that is how I've been able to celebrate this recent birthday. So I picked the topic. It's a little, Teresa read it. It's a little vague, and I was like, oh my gosh, that doesn't sound very inspiring perhaps, but to me, it's so super exciting. And I'm going to read it again. It says, and let's always remember that meditation is in reality intensely practical. To me, that is a message of hope, depth, and weight, just in that sentence, because I need something practical. I don't need a theory. I'm a reader. I love reading. I've always read. I've gone to school for multiple years. Give me a good textbook or something intellectual that I can read. And I like reading that. And I always read it. Even when I was drinking, I was a reader. But none of it ever changed or impacted or transformed my life. I need something that is in reality intensely practical. So that's why I'm super excited about this, because I have found that meditation is one of those things. There's many things in AA that are intensely practical. Step 10 for me, super practical. Oh my gosh, all the steps, you know. One of my, I love listening to Bob B from Minneapolis. And he always says the spiritual way is intensely practical. I like that. I need that. And hopefully I'll be able to share some of that journey that I've been undergoing for these years with you all tonight. So I don't want to, bore you with a little, I'm a history nut. And so I just want to give a little bit of history in how meditation maybe came about, evolved in AA. And we read quite a few times in the big book. In fact, 37 times, yes, I'm a little bit of a nerd, 37 times in the big book, meditation is mentioned. But we start, with the founders, and they mention meditation, but, with history, I don't think it's the same as what we may think about today. It's not as similar as some of us understand meditation today. But one of the earliest mentions of something similar to meditation was something they did called the morning watch. And I really like that. And I might try and bring it back and incorporate it a little bit into AA with my sponsees, like, let's do the morning watch. It was used by Reverend Sam Shoemaker, one of my heroes in our history. I love him. And then it kind of trickled down into our founders in AA. But basically, it was just a time of quiet reading and prayer. And the quiet time, they also used that phrase, a quiet time, was a time where they would aim to listen to the divine or God, as they refer to their higher power. Many of you may have heard about the two-way prayer a lot. I know there are times I practice it at times. I shift around my spiritual practice because I don't like to get into a rut. And if I'm feeling a little bit like I need something, a little bit more enthusiasm, I'll switch it around a little bit. But the two-way prayer was a practice of the Oxford group. And it involved prayer, meditation, and guidance. And they would describe it as prayer as speaking to God, and then meditation as listening to God. And then they waited for the guidance. They sought guidance, asked for guidance, and they say received guidance. So in other words, they would pray. They would ask a question, journal, meditate, and then they would start writing. And I love the fact that they were journaling back then. Sometimes we think it's a new practice, but they really used journaling a lot. And there's this one Chinese or Buddhist, I'm not sure, proverb that says the strongest memory is paler than the weakest ink. And I think maybe that's why we put pen to paper often in our fourth step, because we say, well, I've got it all up here. I can remember it. But I like that. The strongest memory is paler than the weakest ink. So we need to put pen to paper. And that's what they did. And they journaled. In Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, it does describe Dr. Bob's prayer practice, morning practice, which, like I said, was a short prayer. And then he would study the Bible for 20 minutes or so. And then he sat in quiet for directions, what he was supposed to do that day, who he was supposed to help, seeking the divine in his life. And, thy will, not mine, be done. So that's sort of a little bit of where we see the beginnings of meditation in AA and where it kind of trickled down from the Oxford group, Reverend Sam Shoemaker and others. They gathered and adopted these things. And like I said, it's mentioned multiple times in the big book. And yet it seems as if many, many of us struggle with this concept of meditation. I know I struggle with it. And it seems as if even in step 11, where it says prayer and meditation, we're heavy on the prayer and often tend to ignore the meditation part. And I get that struggle. I really do. In my drinking days, I was completely shut down, literally shut down, and often unconscious or blacked out, if taking it very literally. Then when I stopped drinking, my mind became very, very active, very active. And we hear this from newcomers all the time. I can't sit still. I don't like the quiet. I don't know how to do that. It doesn't work for me. My mind is too busy. I'm too full of anxiety. Well, my mind also was just a mess. I was also haunted by fear and anxiety, high anxiety when I stopped drinking. When I like to say, when my mind came back online, boy, did it come back online. It was very, very busy. And I even, at the beginning, I would have panic attacks. I remember one time early on in my sobriety, I was at a legal conference in San Diego, and I hadn't had a drink. I had just started working with my sponsor, and I was unraveling because I had yet to experience the solution of the steps. And in San Diego, in this really fancy hotel, I ended up in my hotel bathroom, curled up in the fetal position on the floor, having an absolute panic attack, not able to get up and go to this conference that I was required to be at. So yeah, when we're new in sobriety, this can be daunting and overwhelming. And I understand that. And it has taken me a while to really embrace the concept of meditation as part of step 11. But as I've grown, I really do see the quote that I picked tonight, how immensely practical it is to address these very things that were blocking me from meditation. It addresses my anxiety, my fear, any sort of panic. It has addressed my depression. It has assisted me in so many ways, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But since I've learned to meditate, I don't have as many ups and downs. I'm not on that intense roller coaster. One day when you're feeling wonderful and the next day you're sad and you don't even know why. Today, my mind is calm and quiet. And meditation has provided me the opportunity to continue to wake up spiritually. I get to become aware and present in my life. I would have to say that meditation has become like an accelerant to my recovery, and it enhances it. So this isn't just a theory or a cute idea or a fad for me. It has become a part of my daily practice, my spiritual way of life in this program, thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, in the 12 and 12, it says that in step 11, it says we will want the good that is in all of us, even in the worst of us, to flower and to grow. Most certainly, we shall need bracing air and abundance of food, but first of all, we shall want sunlight. Nothing much can grow in the dark. Meditation is our step out into the sun. How then shall we meditate? I love that. He just writes in poetry. But then, I was reading it and he says, how then shall we meditate? And I'm thinking, great question, Bill. At the beginning, it's like, okay, great. You've given me this wonderful, poetic, beautiful description of me stepping out into the sunlight and being a flower and growing. And it's like, great, but tell me how, it's great question. And I didn't know where to begin. But he also wrote that in the 12 and 12, that the actual experience of meditation and prayer across the centuries is, of course, immense. The world's libraries and places of worship are a treasure trove for all seekers. Well, that tells me where to begin. And I did start my search, and I started my journey by talking to people who were who meditated. I am a seeker, and I started with what was accessible to me. And that led me on quite a variety of experiences. Since I was living in South Dakota and I spent a great deal of time on the reservation, I started with the Lakota. Some people know them by Sioux, but the Lakota and their beliefs and their spiritual practices. And I learned to sit and listen to the elders. I began to be quiet and sit and listen. I began to sit in sweats and in different ceremonies and listen. And I was able to do that. And that was accessible to me. Not quite meditation, but I was learning to sit still and to listen and to take Bill at his word that I'm allowed to explore, to go to the world's libraries and different places of worship, to seek out the treasure troves that he talks about. And from that, it led me into really exploring Buddhism. And I found a home. I am not a practicing Buddhist, but that is where I found my home in a lot of their practices, and especially meditation. And that is where I really started diving into meditation. And I think that Bill, in his words, and when he was writing in here, he seems, now red flag, my opinion, but it appears to me that he's open and encouraging us to seek out this spiritual knowledge, that we can look at wherever we can find it, whether it's in libraries or places of worship or with elders and those of faith. We're encouraged, and I love that freedom to be able to do that. And in my opinion, this includes Christian and Hindu or Hinduism and Buddhism and yoga and anywhere else that I can find the spirit, or as I like to call, the divine love. So in the 12 and 12 in step 11, Bill starts with something that is very simple, safe for someone with my Judeo-Christian background. Once I finally could get over my anger and hatred of this God word, I found Bill very accessible, and he was very gentle. And he starts us with meditation by introducing that wonderful and beautiful prayer from St. Francis. Not only does he introduce us to that prayer, but then he uses it as a tool for meditation. He suggests that we take a line from that and that we can meditate or repeat it, or I don't know, I didn't mark the pages where he actually describes how we may be able to do that. And it's just simple. And that's where my sponsor suggested I begin. And I did. And I really clung to the St. Francis prayer, and I practiced it like Bill suggested. So that's how I began. And for many years, I missed one of my favorite parts in the 12 and 12. I'm not going to keep reading. I'm just going to read this one last little part, but I just love it. And he says, page 100, as though lying upon a sunlight beach, let us relax and breathe deeply of the spiritual atmosphere with which the grace of this prayer surrounds us. Let us become willing to partake and be strengthened and lifted up by the sheer spiritual power, beauty, and love of those, of which these magnificent words are the carriers. Let us look now upon the sea and ponder what its mystery is. And let us lift our eyes to the far horizon, beyond which we shall seek all those wonders still unseen. Sheer poetry. But this all sounds an awful like meditation, similar to what other faiths practice. This is imagery, visualization. It's just beautiful. And it introduced me to a new technique in using, guided meditation, imagery to help calm myself. My sponsor started me off right away when I was in the fetal position in that hotel room. He helped me calm myself down when I was upset or angry, and I don't have time to share those methods, maybe later in the question and answer time or something like that, but very, very practical. And I use that with my sponsees as well. And I can tell you that it has saved the day when there have been times where they're out the door, they are gone, because the obsession is on them so strong. And if I can get them to just sit down for just a minute and take them through one of these practices, these, like the visualization that Bill is describing, it actually has given us enough time and given the other person the pause necessary to stay and to stay in their seat for one more day. And so again, it's intensely practical as well. Now, none of this is anything I grew up with. I grew up in a very strong Judeo-Christian, very strict upbringing, and meditation was nowhere in my upbringing. So it has been quite the exploration for me, but I have come to realize how effective that these methods can be. And if I stay open and willing and humble to listen to people who do practice it and have their own experience with it, oh, It does, like Bill says, it's just a treasure trove of different things that have actually brought significant transformation to how I live my daily life and how I interact with other people, how I interact with myself, and most especially how I interact with my higher power. I believe that because I have made it a priority to practice meditation, I have come to a deeper understanding of the 11th step, actually of all the steps. I went from a surface level of just conforming and complying, which did work for a while. I did what I was told and my life got better, fancy that. But in practicing, actually diving deep into what Bill is suggesting and going on that journey and going into the libraries and the places of religion and that, you know, ransacking the treasure troves and talking to people. I think that it has made my experiences with the 12 steps that much deeper, that much more meaningful and practical. The quote that I chose, you know, that meditation is intensely practical, it is true, but the question becomes, has it made a difference in how I live my day-to-day life? You know, it's great to sit here and to say, oh yes, meditation is wonderful and it transforms, but if it is not revealed in how I live and when you interact with me and how I treat those closest to me or those who annoy me, what difference does it make? It's just meaningless and again, just a theory, and it's not changing my life. I like to, I've written about, and it's not original with me, but it's like, what spills out when you're jostled by life? What's going to spill out of you? And I can tell you that before meditation, before really making this a part of my daily life, if I was jostled by life or, you know, kicked by life, what spilled out, even though I claim to be, you know, a member of AA, it was not pretty. And some days I have to, of course, and it's a program of honesty, some days it's still not pretty, but more and more, I'm able to handle when my life is jostled or I'm in an upheaval. I have to tell you, currently I'm in kind of an upheaval. It's not a bad, you know, it's not, is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. But it's not particularly bad, but it is challenging. And as a result, it has impacted my meditation. I don't want to come on here and share tonight and act like, oh, now I don't struggle with it. It's just as easy and as common as me breathing. That's not true. And my biggest challenge, honestly, is if my schedule changes. I don't tend to do well when my regular schedule changes. And now I have another job and my whole schedule is in upheaval. And it has taken me 2 weeks. I just now feel like I'm getting back my feet under me. And you know what? The first thing to go is my meditation. I'm too busy. I don't have time. I'm tired. I'm stressed. I've got other things, you know, all of that. Still doing my prayers and still doing some reading, but to sit for 20 minutes, you know, I've got stuff to do and think about. I really need to think about these things that are happening in my life. And I can tell you, I can see the results in 2 weeks. I can see the results. And unfortunately, the people around me can see the results of my lack of action. So yeah, I had to speak to my I have a spiritual advisor, and it's like, okay, we got to address this. And so back on track. But like I mentioned, I don't know why in the moments of the most stress, or in the moments where my life is, I'm getting squeezed or jostled, whatever you prefer, that I would set down the very thing that is the biggest assistance to me. Because when I meditate, I am calmer. I can handle things in a more mature manner, spiritually speaking. I have far less stress and anxiety. I'm able to practice the pause that's so important for me, because in that pause, I get to invite my higher power in to participate with me. I'm not on my own. I can laugh at myself more easily, which is very important because I take myself very, very seriously. I can breathe easier, I can just breathe. I can have that full exhale. And I also don't listen to the destructive voices in my head, the lies that are constantly chattering. I'm going to fail. I can't do this new job. What are they thinking of me? All those voices that chatter, the impending doom. Obviously, it comes from ego or self, lower self. It is not from my higher power. And when I do practice meditation, I can more easily discern what is a spiritual, based thought, and what is an ego-based thought. And I'm more able to be an observer of my thinking rather than attached to my thinking. Meditation, also continuing on the theme of how practical it is absolutely changed my view of the world, how I view everything that is occurring around me. It has transformed my ideas regarding all of you, myself, my higher power, loss, even death, which is extraordinary for me. It's also allowed me to feel a connection to others. There's one meditation that I practice specifically, and about how we are all connected. All beings are connected, and how that I am you and you are me. And that's how I get to start looking at the world around me and those around me, even the people who I can't really relate to, the people I don't like, the people who annoy me. When I sit in meditation, and another meditation I practice is loving kindness. And I get to practice that and imagine someone I'm not getting along with. And I begin to heal that relationship. It assists me with my step 4s and 5s, if something pops up and I need to do some inventory, it helps me gain a new perspective of the other person. So like I said, to me, it really assists me in living the steps on a day by day basis. All right, I got it. Thanks. Well, I guess I can wrap it up by bringing it back to the 11th step, where it said, it talks about God's will for us and the power to carry it out. For my meditation to be of any value, the results have to show in my life. And that's probably one of the biggest ways that it shows up in my life. And that is, I can live in the spiritual principles more and more each day. There are so many things in life that are beyond our control. But I do think that if we can practically and diligently take responsibility for our own spiritual practice, and if we constantly seek to improve it, which does include meditation, it is just the real antidote to our own personal anxieties, fears, and resentments and self-centeredness that plague us. So in closing, I would just have to say that, for me, meditation is a means of allowing God to transform my mind. And that in and of itself has led me to have a new and amazing life. And I want to thank you for letting me share these things that are usually very private for me, and being gracious enough to listen and share this time with me. So thank you.